Hello everyone, this is part 29 of What If Naruto and Hinata trained together and a spark happened, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Tsukuyomi, Orochimaru counted. The dark world formed around them, and on either side of Orochimaru now stood Hashirama Senju and Hoshi Hyuga. Madara stared at his sister and the first Hokage impassively, blatantly unimpressed. Hoshi darted forward, her fingertips striking Madara. And Hashirama's Mokuton caused saplings to shoot up around Uchiha, sealing his legs. But the red spirals in the Chunin Sharingan flared brilliantly, and the illusion dissolved. Did you honestly expect that to work on me? The Akatsuki leader shook his head, his tone of voice surprisingly free of recrimination. Despite his reaction, Madara was mildly shaken by the vision, but he could not allow his enemy to know that. Unfortunately, his attempt at bravado cost him. No, I didn't, Orochimaru agreed viciously as he stabbed Kusanagi into Madara's chest. The immortal noticed the attack just before the sword struck, too late to completely avoid it. He hopped up and backwards, just far and fast enough that the grass cutter struck the bottom of his left lung, instead of impaling him through the heart. Madara was able to push back, pulling his torso free from the blade before the snake could expand the weapon and pin him to the wall. I understand you don't really know any weapons, Orochimaru taunted him. In your time all one had to do to become a Jonin was to defeat or be acknowledged by another Jonin, so you were never forced to broaden your skills. Fortunately, that doesn't apply to me. You make it sound like that matters. Madara straightened, allowing the blood to flow freely down his robe. This wound is not enough to hinder me. And now that your surprise is spent, you will fare no better with that blade than you did with taijutsu. Orochimaru slashed out in response, but Madara subtly dodged. Even changing the length of his blade to counter his opponent's dodges or avoid his blocks did not allow the serpent to land a blow on the immortal. The true Uchiha moved simply and without wasted effort, refusing to counterattack. Instead he absorbed his enemy's skill with each swing, making it easier to evade with each missed strike. But his avoidance served another, greater purpose. The deep stab was hurting more than he had let on, and he had spent a great deal of chakra on the sustained Amaterasu and the Kamui. He wanted to give Orochimaru time to wear himself down, while his wound started to close. Though immortal, Madara did not heal substantially faster than most other shinobi. So he had also activated a minor wound-sealing ninjutsu. If the snake summoner would continue this swordplay a few more minutes, Uchiha expected they would be back on equal footing. Orochimaru slashed and stabbed artfully, but his mind was racing. Hitting Madara with Tsukuyomi and summoning Kusanagi had been a desperation move. The amount by which the first Uchiha's Sharingan outclassed his own stolen Kekkei Genkai was stunning to the Sannin. He had not been expecting Madara to be able to produce Amaterasu from both eyes, though in retrospect it should not have been too much a surprise, given the fact Itachi and Sasuke manifested the black fire in different eyes. But what really frightened Orochimaru was Madara's casual use of Kamui. He had heard of the attack through his agents in both the Akatsuki and the Hidden Leaf. However, he thought Kakashi had created the technique. Kamui. Are you reduced to stealing jutsu from the likes of Kakashi Hatake? Orochimaru taunted, hoping to distract Madara or gain some information. Madara avoided the first bait, but bit on the second. Hardly. The Akatsuki leader was dismissive. Kakashi did not create the Kamui, he simply manifested it in Obito's left eye. I can use all four of the Mangekyo Sharingan techniques, Tsukuyomi, Amaterasu, Kamui, and Sasori. Until Itachi, all of my descendants only acquired two of those powers when they unlocked the second level, one per eye. But Itachi was able to use all of them except for Kamui. And I had hoped in time he would gain that ability too. What about you, Orochimaru? Madara turned the verbal assault back, even as he slid around another stab at his chest. Have you been able to unlock any powers besides the two Sasuke already had? Do you have the Kamui or the Sasori? When the serpent didn't answer, the true Uchiha smirked. I didn't think so. How can you ever expect to gain the three powers of the Chunin Sharingan, when you cannot even master the Mangekyo level? The younger renegade frowned and redoubled the speed and power of his attacks. Shikamaru, there was a touch of pleading under Temari's anger. I need you three to hold off Shukaku for 10 minutes. Can you do that? I won't promise anything, Tima-chan, he refused to lie, but we'll do everything we can. Thanks. Kamatari, help them. The weasel, who had landed near them while dodging the sand demon's attacks, nodded and returned to sending blades of wind at the tanuki's legs. Choji shrank back to his original size as he painfully dragged himself to his feet. Ino dodged spikes of sand to reach him, and without the time or safety to give him a full examination, climbed on his back and began to use a generic regeneration technique on him. Akamaki's cracked ribs and bruised lung began to heal even as he jumped away from another stab from Shukaku, still carrying his girlfriend. That's enough, Ino, he told her after a close scrape. I'm fine and we need you back on water duty. The dry night air, and the one-tail's frequent disconnection of his components, was quickly evaporating any slowness and softness from his attacks. Ino nodded, and swallowed a food pill as she hopped down, signing again before she landed. Unable to use his shadow techniques against such a large opponent and out of paper bombs, Shikamaru joined her, though his suit and arts were simpler and less powerful. Choji extracted his mace from the seal on his belt buckle. Though his weapon was far more substantial than most of its kind, resembling nothing so much as a metal baseball bat shoved through a large steel pumpkin, the demon snorted in mirth when he noticed it. What are you going to do with that, Chunky? The One-Tails mocked. In case you hadn't noticed, I'm not exactly solid. Ino, Shika, do you guys have the blue pills with you? Choji asked, his face growing dark as his left hand extracted a familiar case from one of his belt pouches. Choji, you can't. It's too dangerous, his lover protested, but his best friend simply nodded. I have to, Ino, he told her, it's the only way we can hold this thing off for Temari. She looked away but didn't protest further. How do you intend to do that? The demon asked, sounding genuinely interested. Hang on a second, I'll show you, Choji answered intently. He opened the case, and dumped the 3 pills into his left hand. He replaced the case deliberately, and then took out a half-dozen food pills and held them with the other capsules. At the Hokage's suggestion, the Akamaki clan had begun using the energy supplements to both counteract and prolong the effects of their special combat medicine. But in the end the food pills were only a stopgap. Fortunately, Tsunade had also used her experience following Sasuke's defection to create the blue pills, a 4th medicine to completely arrest the effects of the other 3. Unfortunately, the 4th tablet would only stop, not repair, the damage done. So it became a balancing act, not taking the antidote too soon, but doing so before the drain became lethal. As a result, Choji gave the blue pills to his teammates, relying on them to administer the counter-agent if he passed out before he could take it. Choji faced the demon, and half-raised the medicine to his mouth. Expansion Jutsu. He shouted again, and as he grew his weapon swelled to match. Once he was about 20 feet tall, Choji popped the green pill and the first 2 food pills into his mouth and swallowed. At 40 feet in height, he gingerly selected and consumed the yellow supplement and 2 of the tiny brown capsules. And when he reached a full 60 feet tall, he dumped the now minuscule last dose into his mouth. Shuddering slightly from the transformation that was occurring, he gulped down the final set of pills. Chakra erupted from Choji's back, taking the form of butterfly wings. They flapped once as he charged forward and swung his mace sideways. For a moment, the demon's face registered surprise, an instant before the sand tanuki rocketed into the barricade. The giant Chunin followed, and struck a powerful overhead blow, hammering the Bayu into the ground. Shukaku lifted his left front paw, but Akamaki swung his weapon sideways faster, and tore the granular limb free, sending it flying. The monster growled as his tail darted out, touching his severed appendage to reabsorb its components. Not bad, kid, the demon admitted grudgingly, but at the rate you're dropping body mass, I doubt you can keep it up for much more than a few minutes. Who says I have to? Choji shot back, panting slightly. Temari raced forward in an uneven zigzag pattern, using her speed and wind chakra to try to keep Shima guessing. She darted past him, and whirled around to send a compact column of air at him with her Fuyuten, straight-line jutsu. His armor absorbed the attack, and he was only forced to lean slightly into the localized gale force winds. She folded her fan and charged at his back, stabbing at the base of his spine. The unique weapon chipped the hardened sand, and Shima rotated counterclockwise to catch her weapon before she could retract it to strike again. He continued his spin, pulling Temari off balance while with his free hand he launched a right cross at her nose. The young woman dropped and slid to the side, barely managing to wrench her fan out of his grasp. She turned her fan over, using the momentum to slap it into his left shoulder. The renegade shuddered slightly, and again his armor cracked briefly and then resealed itself. Doton, Stone Claw's jutsu, she said without signing, and two thin hands extended from the earth and caught his ankles. With her target trapped, she swung at his neck with the edge of her fan. But he snapped the rocky limbs holding him easily, and stepped back out of range. Then he moved back in, and caught her weapon between his arm and his side, wedging it tightly so she could not free it so easily as the last time. Temari, your pitiful excuse for a sensei had failed you, he lectured, this is how you use an earth jutsu without hand signs. Doton, ripping embrace jutsu. Four clawed arms erupted from the bedrock, and instead of simply holding Temari, they began to tear at her clothes and flesh. Air burst, she countered, doing enough damage to the talons that she was able to escape, but not before they carved some deep furrows into her legs. In her retreat, she was forced to release her fan, unable to extricate the weapon. But this left both of her hands free to form the seals for a new, complex technique. Fuyuten, dueling vortices, she announced as Shima began to walk towards her again. Under his arm, her fan snapped open. After struggling to hold the wind stirrer, he dropped it quickly as a cyclone emerged from each of the outer struts. Temari rolled forward, retrieving her weapon and using it to direct the now 10-foot-tall tornadoes towards her brother's killer. The renegade dodged back as the twin twisters converged on him. His expectations were not met however, and the whirlwinds skirted by one another without touching, and circled back around on him again. He prepared to dodge again, but the kunoiki was ready for him. Fuyuten, straight line jutsu, she said again, flipping over her fan to create the linear burst. Again the attack failed to pierce his armor but disrupted his movements, this time just long enough for the tornadoes to hit him. For the first few heartbeats, the opposed whirlwinds tore at him, shredding his shield grain by grain. After that long second, the cyclones merged, and catapulted him straight up, nearly to the up edge of the canyon. He tumbled awkwardly through the air, before smashing hard into the ground. Temari darted forward to finish it, but with a burst of dust, Shima was replaced by a large rock. That hurt, he said from behind her, blood dripping from his left hand and right ear. It should have killed you, she snarled, turning and slashing at him with her fan again. He caught the weapon, but Temari noticed something. A glint of silver under the remains of the skin-colored sand armor on his left wrist. What are you hiding there? She asked pointedly. Orochimaru reversed his grip on Kusanagi, and swung underhand at Madara, following the attack with a chest-level kick. But the elder Uchiha stepped away from the sword, and gently pushed the kick aside. The leader of the Akatsuki had already copied the body thief's fighting style with the Jian, so Orochimaru began to fight more randomly, mixing in katana, longsword, and even axe-type attacks, counting on the enhancements laced into Kusanagi to allow the slender blade to survive strikes designed for a heavier weapon. He also started to add taijutsu to his assault, firing off kicks and even the occasional offhand punch. But he could not land a blow on the immortal. You are trying to out Uchiha me, Orochimaru pointed out, to learn what I can do and let me tire myself. You are the one who sought this battle, Madara said wryly, a fact I let myself briefly forget. And we are in my territory. Each passing second increases the chance that my warriors will discover us. And while most of them won't stand a chance against you, they will drain you and provide a distraction. So then, I should stop testing you. The snake reappeared around his master's arm, and Orochimaru returned the sword to its unorthodox scabbard. You. Testing me? Madara was mildly yet cautiously incredulous. He expected the Sannin had more tricks up his sleeve, but still the bold statement surprised him. Oh yes, the face of Sasuke Uchiha smirked, I wanted live combat data, on your physical and visual reaction times. And I hoped I might be able to get the upper hand. He glanced at the cut between Madara's ribs. The wound had stopped bleeding, and had even started to scab over. But as you said, Orochimaru continued, this battle won't be decided with melee combat. Kaiten, Tide of Fire Jutsu. Light orange flames poured out from around Orochimaru's legs, ebbing and surging around the room at between knee and ankle height. Madara flipped upwards, adhering on the ceiling to avoid the waves of inferno. He stared at Orochimaru in confusion. You think you can defeat me in a ninjutsu battle? There is a chance you know more jutsu than I do, the serpent conceded, if you have been making good use of your Sharingan. But I have both my own chakra supply and Sasuke's to draw on. And you already wasted more power than I did during our Amaterasu war. Raiten, Electron Trident. The 3 lines of lightning prevented Madara from dodging to the side, and if he jumped off the ceiling, he would lose his grip and fall into the flames. With no options to avoid the attack, the Uchiha founder was forced to counter. Fire with fire jutsu, Madara announced as he pushed off, allowing the electricity to pass over him. Red flames wrapped his body as he landed, burning away the weaker fire of Orochimaru's ongoing attack. You could have used Kamui to eliminate my attack, Orochimaru suggested slyly, but that would be too draining, wouldn't it? Sasuke had more chakra than me, and I don't doubt you have more than he did, but together I have more than enough energy to run you out. Having copied but not fully integrated the tide of fire, Madara estimated it was draining Orochimaru at the same rate his fire with fire was taking his chakra. He knew the Sannin was correct, he could not win a war of attrition. He had to go on the offensive again, and if possible find a way to attract reinforcements at the same time. Then he noticed the body of the dead guard, crackling slowly. Time for your next lesson, Madara said, the red whirls in his black eyes glowing again, the 3 powers of the Chunin Sharingan. Orochimaru paused in his hand signs, intrigued. Of course, Susanoo has become infamous, the Sharingan master noted, the eternal genjutsu nicknamed 1000 years of pain because of the length of time most of its victims perceive before their bodies fail. The snake nodded, grinning hopefully. No, Madara understood his expectation, and shook his head. Second is the most worthless of all my powers, Izanagi. Izanagi gives me the power to instantly and fully heal any person at the cost of taking half of their injuries myself. It can even restore the dead, if their souls have not reached the afterlife yet. The snake smirked, fully agreeing the ability to help another was a waste of time and chakra. And finally, Izanami, the glow in his eyes intensified, and a thin beam of black flame shot out from his right eye, striking the corpse. The body was immediately engulfed by the conflagration, but instead of turning to ash, it twitched, and then rose smoothly to its feet. The power to burn away death, Madara explained, a power I'm sure one such as you can appreciate. The burning cadaver charged Orochimaru, lashing out with its black flame-wrapped fist. Until the corpse is consumed, the soul is returned to its body, but enslaved to my will, Uchiha noted, stepping forward, it possesses all the skills it did in life, but without the frailties of being alive, it can act with speed and strength that would have injured or killed it before. And like Amaterasu, the flames of Izanami will destroy anything that they touch. The shadowy inferno surrounding the undead bandit ate away at the orange flames roiling around the room, and Orochimaru finally ended his jutsu to avoid wasting any more chakra. As the Sannin dodged another darkly glowing attack, the immortal was able to release his defensive arts. The body thief grabbed a portion of the broken and smoldering table, and flung it sideways at the body. Though pushed back by the weight, the stronger flames around the former guard incinerated the table, scattering fragments of black flame and ash behind the aggressive corpse. It ran forward again, aiming a jab at the left side of Sasuke's face. As Orochimaru ducked right, the undead warrior's other hand came around in a backhand aimed directly at the Sannin's new path. The younger renegade stumbled back to avoid being hit. Fool, Orochimaru berated himself, use the Sharingan. He began to dodge more fluidly, noticing that Madara was standing in the middle of the room, watching smugly. As he slithered carefully around the lethal punches and kicks, Orochimaru started signing again. Suten, Hand of Waves, he completed the jutsu. Though the force of the blast knocked the corpse back, it did nothing to remove the flames. Hyoten, Glacier Shard, the snake summoner tried again. The giant ice chunk carved a large hole in the burning bandit's chest but melted away almost instantly. You cannot quench this fire, Madara mocked. I am just keeping it away from me, Orochimaru countered, and then thought to himself, but if I can't put the fire out, maybe I can help it along. Orochimaru jumped into the front left corner of the room, opening his left eye as wide as he could. Amaterasu. The killing black flame swept over the corpse, unaffected by the animating flames, and incinerated the rest of the body. The wide-angle shot also took of the rest of the conference table and one of the overhead lights. Madara unleashed another small kamui to protect himself, and glared at his former ally. I guess you never used Izanami against your own family before. It was the Sanin's turn to be smug. The two warriors tensed in anticipation of the other's next move, but before either of them could act. You! A shout came from outside the room, and both combatants turned to look. Naruto Uzumaki stood in the hall, having just passed the left-hand threshold of the door. The Leaf Chunin was glowering at Madara hatefully. I can't get a clear shot, Ino complained, and Kamatari nodded. But Shikamaru was more concerned with the seconds that ticked away as Choji fought the One-Tails under the influence of the chili pill. Despite that, he took a moment to think about her quandary. Arc it over Choji's head, or make it rain, the genius advised. Getting Shukaku wet is what matters, not the force of the jutsu. She nodded and began to sign again. Choji noticed Shukaku looked smaller as he swung his mace again. This time, instead of mashing the silicate, the demon's body held more firmly, absorbing the impact. The One-Tails rose up on slightly more human-shaped back legs, bracing his tail up against the barricade. His forelegs changed as well, his left paw becoming a battle axe while his right became a spiked ball. The giant Chunin swung again, and the demon caught the weapon on his axe, before swinging his morning star. The force of the blow pushed Choji back a few feet and the spikes punctured his armor and the outer layer of his skin. He's compacting himself, Shikamaru shouted, to increase his strength and resilience. But it should also slow him down. Except we don't really have the space here for Choji to take advantage of his increased speed, the shadow user reminded himself, and he's already starting to run out of steam. He has 78 more seconds, and then we'll have to give him the antidote. Get a move on, Tima-chan. With Choji keeping Shukaku focused on him, the silicate armor around Shima was reforming at a snail's pace, much to the Sand Renegade's dismay. The traitor could no longer count on the protection or the increased strength, as Temari stabbed and slashed furiously with her fan. She took a swipe at his right temple, and when he blocked with that arm, she turned her weapon over, and jabbed the butt end into his belly. The breath was expelled from his lungs. He tried to kick her away, but she caught it on her fan and pushed him back instead. He started to sign, but she swung her weapon again, and he was forced to break his hands apart to avoid having both shattered. Unfortunately, this was exactly what the kunoichi wanted. She snapped open the slats and turned the fan parallel to his body. Wind Scythe Jutsu, she announced, and Shima was too close to dodge. The air blade flashed out, severing his left arm just below the elbow. He howled in pain as the limb fell away, and with it the silver talisman. No longer connected to Shukaku's essence, the remaining sand armor crumbled away. What have you done? He demanded, clutching at his dismemberment. Taken away your advantages, she smirked, her deduction having proven correct. And my control, you foolish girl. Shukaku roared with delight, and smashed the Akatsuki's barricade with his morning star fist, reducing the top half to rubble. Temari turned to look and Shima started to create the right half of the zodiac seals with his surviving hand. No more orders, no more kowtowing to that human, the demon cackled joyfully. Then he looked at Choji with intense joy, no more limits on how much damage I cause around here. And that means bye-bye, fatso. Spikes of sand exploded wildly from the tanuki, digging into the granite walls and floor of the extinct river, destroying a handful of the lights. Choji tried to dodge backwards and block with his mace, but he was slowing down from the physical drain of the 3 pills. A few of the spikes dug into his chest, and he lost control of his expansion jutsu. The now slender Chunin fell through the air as he returned to normal size. Doton, Stone Claw's jutsu, Shima incanted, and 6 hands of rock emerged from the ground to grab the distracted Temari. He lunged for his arm, but the Sand Genius's limbs were not caught, and she swung her fan again. Wind Scythe Jutsu, she shouted angrily, severing his other arm and cutting deep into his chest. Shima was no longer able to maintain the trapping jutsu, and Temari darted over, taking the amulet from around his left arm. She knelt before him, and lifted him closer to her face. How do I use this? She demanded. Shima simply smiled at her desperation as his life expired. Temari dropped him with a curse, and turned back to the demon. Shukaku, stop, she ordered, clutching the silver seal tightly. Sorry, there's more to it than that, the one-tails crowed. And then he turned his attention back downwards. Ino had caught Choji as he fell, and was now working desperately to close her lover's wounds. Shikamaru and Kamatari kept the distance from the couple, but were desperately using their respective water and wind arts to try to slow the tanuki. Shukaku ignored their efforts, and grinned murderously at the injured warrior. Before today, no human has ever challenged me physically, he announced, as Ino forced the antidote down Akamiki's throat, so I think I'll grind you into paste. Get away, Choji groaned to Ino, as the sand demon lifted a now hammer-shaped paw. Instead, she threw herself over him as the limb descended. Then suddenly more sand leapt up around them, forming a dome that stopped the attack. For a few seconds, all the demon or any of the humans could do was blink in surprise. Shikamaru glanced at Temari, but his girlfriend looked just as mystified. I believe this is the first time we have met face to face, a new yet familiar voice carried over the valley. They all turned to look at the 5 newcomers on the top of the wall. Gaara, Temari called out in relief. Well, it's my former host, Shukaku smirked, I guess that makes this fight complete. I'll get to kill all 3 of the 4th Kazekige's children. What does that mean? Baki demanded, stepping forward to stand next to the current Kazekige. The monster smiled wider, but before he could speak, Shikamaru answered. The Bayu killed Kankuro, the normally apathetic ninja's voice was harsh, that guy died to save Temari, Ino, and me. And now that you sister killed the insect that was controlling me, there is nothing to stop me from finishing the rest of you. I disagree. Gaara's voice was hoarse yet controlled, and he removed his sand gourd. You're gonna fight me one-on-one. Shukaku chuckled, well, someone got a big head. Gaara ignored the taunt, and thrust his hand into the vase. He pulled out a small brass urn, and then slung the gourd back over his shoulder. Is that? The demon trailed off worriedly. The kettle in which you were first sealed, so many decades ago, the sand leader confirmed, since our separation, I have been carrying it around, in case we ever met like this. No, never again. The one-tails turned towards the Akatsuki fortress, and tried to scamper away. Matsuri, Tsutomu, stop him, the Kazekige instructed. Nitsuki, Baki, I need you to help with the sealing. Gaara's apprentice and the masked male Jonin used the body flicker technique to get ahead of the demon, and set up overlapping walls of wind between the demon and themselves. The monster bounced off twice, before turning back. Like the ninjas, he could not climb the walls thanks to the Akatsuki's defensive technique, but the tanuki recognized he could get away through the damaged barricade. Gaara and the other 2 sand shinobi moved to where Ino was working on Choji. The other 3 survivors of the rescue party also moved in. Will he be okay? The former Jinchuriki asked with a kernel of concern. If you can find a way to keep us all alive, Ino answered brusquely, finally moving to the least dangerous of the large ninja's 4 wounds. Gaara nodded and turned to Shikamaru. Shikamaru, do you know anything about sealing? In theory, the genius shrugged, I've never had to try it. Can you act as a corner of the earth sealing pentagram? I can manage, the leaf ninja answered. Good, then the 5 of us will contain Shukaku, he told his 3 Jonin and the leaf chunin, then requested, Kamatari, will you guard Ino and Choji? It would be my honor, the weasel bowed deeply to the sand leader. The 5 warriors all began to move into position as the demon charged back towards them. Matsuri dropped her barrier, and teleported back to the wall, to ready a replacement before the sand demon could escape. This will not be easy, Gaara noted with a touch of worry, as Baki and Nitsuki separated to get to the far side of the beast. Will that thing make it any easier? Shikamaru asked, pointing to the amulet Temari still held. That's what the Akatsuki were using to control the Bayu. The Kazekige did something Shikamaru had never seen before. He smiled broadly. The one-tails is down, Shima has failed, Deodara told his lieutenant in an annoyed tone, lowering his binoculars as the echoes of the shrieking demon faded. Let's get moving. The renegade grass chunin nodded, and the rogue ninjas and bandits charged down the northern corridor. I believe he is talking to you, Orochimaru said softly, and with full sweetness, while shaping a jutsu. As Naruto charged into the room, Sasuke's body merged into the shadows and vanished. What are you doing free, and alive? Madara demanded. Turns out the extraction was cancelled, Naruto growled furiously. What? Cancelled? How? Madara sputtered in rage and disbelief. The QB. She decided death was preferable to being under your thumb again, Uzumaki explained darkly. Death? How could the Nine Tails possibly? His black eyes went wide as he regarded the youth more carefully. The teen's aura was stronger, but as he claimed, the presence of the fox demon was gone. Well then, a new Kekkei Genkai is born, Madara half smirked, amused despite his anger and disappointment. I guess those whiskers will be your mark. If you live long enough to spawn, that is. What does that mean, a new Kekkei Genkai? Naruto queried intently. You didn't know. Madara pretended to laugh at his ignorance, taunting him for not being privy to the forbidden secret. When a demon bonds fully with a human, its spirit dies and the human becomes the bearer of a bloodline trait. For example, the Hyuga's ancestor absorbed the 100 Eyes Argus and gained its incredible vision. Or the 3 minor demons I hand-picked and subjugated to create the Sharingan. None of that matters to me, Naruto shrugged. He assumed the fighting posture of the hard fist, and then stepped closer. Why are you here? Madara frowned at the boy's aggressive posture. Why didn't you just escape? I made a promise to a companion, Naruto announced, not wanting to admit he was still lost and had just happened to find the Akatsuki leader. I swore I would kill you for her. Are you sure you can keep your word? Madara countered, dubiously, you have only just acquired your bloodline, surely you don't know the full extent of your new powers. And you are only a chunin. Cliché though it may sound, you are literally 100 years too early to fight me. We'll see about that, Uzumaki barked as he darted forward. Why did you run away? Sasuke asked, curious yet mocking. There was something different about your former teammate, Orochimaru answered nervously, pausing in his run along the cliff line of the northern valley, and I had already wasted too much chakra to risk fighting Naruto and Madara at the same time. Then he resumed his escape, and continued more confidently, besides, Madara has already given me a clue. I will need to acquire Kamui and Sasori before I can unlock the Chunin. And the ultimate Sharingan is the key to his immortality, I am sure of it. Tenten stumbled as Mayuko's ice jutsu trapped her legs, freezing them together. Now, kill her, burn her, the hidden show renegade ordered. The fight had continued on the same track. Knowing they could not kill the demon, and might not even be able to incapacitate it, the six-leaf warriors darted around the demoness, splitting her attention while trying to get close to the monster's controller. Meanwhile, Mayuko had noticed the cat's literal interpretation of her orders, and had started using jutsu on her own, to try to create situations the Bayu could not subvert. Finally, the Akatsuki aspirant was able to tag her primary aggressor, immobilizing the weapon's mistress while all of her allies were on the far side of the monster feline. Lune was the closest, and the ninja squirrel bounded towards the kunoiki. Suten, fire hose jutsu, Neji intoned as the cat's mouth opened. But the high-pressure jet of cold water did not deflect the demoness. Sakura barreled into the two tails, burning through the left shoulder and sleeve of her uniform to try to turn the cat aside. Still the Bayu was undeterred, and the blue flames began to roar down her throat. Byakugan art, primordial chakra jutsu. Hinata slammed her palms into the riverbed. Her chakra pulsed into the ground, merging with the energy of the stones and flowing towards the cat as a visible stream of magenta power. The jutsu struck the feline's right rear leg, and instantly the magenta energy lit of her chakra network, making it visible to even those without the Byakugan. The monster's head snapped up, yowling in pain as her inferno shot harmlessly into the air. After she recovered, the demoness turned her head back to glare at the Hyuga heiress. That hurt, echoed through Hinata's head. The words were powerful, and angry, but also contained just a touch of whining. I know, I'm sorry, the pale beauty found herself thinking, but I had to save my friend. The cat's eyes widened in surprise. What are you waiting for? Mayuko shrieked again, finish her before. Her words died as the male squirrel shattered the ice-holding Tenten's legs with his short sword. After a quick thank you, Guy's student began to run again, both to escape and to help get her blood moving again. You heard that. The cat stared at Hinata as she languidly swiped at Tenten with her paw. And you heard me, the human agreed. She could see all of her allies through her Suijin Byakugan, and as none of the others were reacting, she understood she was the only one hearing the Bayu. You aren't trying to hurt us. Hinata sent to the demoness. I wasn't. The cat's voice seemed to indicate she was joking, at least mostly. I'm sorry, Hinata said again, then quickly continued, but why? I have never intentionally hurt a human, the Bayou answered, as she fired another burst of fire that nearly struck Neji. Sakura darted towards Mayuko, but was diverted almost gently by the feline's left tail. I don't understand, Hinata frowned, you are one of the tailed beasts, the most powerful and vicious of all the demons. But I never asked to be. What do you mean? Hinata's mental voice sounded confused as she hopped to the side. I am not the original Two Tails, the cat answered sadly, I don't even think my predecessor. The Two Tails dog was the first of us. The Nine Tails fox killed the Two Tails dog in the final battle between Madara Uchiha and the Fire Shadow. But there must always be 9 Bayou. And to keep that balance, whatever god or spirit determines these things selected me as the replacement. Originally, I was just a normal, natural, if exceptional house cat. I was smart, strong, and sleek, and no mouse, bird, or insect could escape me. My humans loved me, and I them. The demoness paused in her boasting reminiscence, then continued, once more miserable, until I started to change. I began to grow again, and my tail started to split. When the people of the village I lived in realized what was happening, they ran me out. I didn't understand what was happening to me back then, just that the humans, their dogs, and even other cats all suddenly reeked of fear. As I grew to this size I had trouble controlling myself. All the disasters I caused were either accidents or self-defense. When I was sealed in Yugito, my mind grew to match hers and I learned of chakra control. It was only then that I started to master my new form. Get Haruno, but don't kill her, Mayuko ordered, knocking aside a kunai with her mace. The feline spun again, and retracted her claws before batting at Sakura. I don't know why I'm not like the others, the cat said in reference to the young woman's earlier assertion, maybe they were vicious monsters to begin with, and I was chosen by accident. Or it could be this transformation corrupted them, and because I am the youngest it hasn't happened to me yet. Hinata considered the demon's words. Her heart went out to the cat, though she maintained a slight doubt that this might be some sort of trick. But if I help the cat, that will help us too, she decided, trying to keep her thoughts private. How is Mayuko controlling you? She asked the monstrous feline. That silver, the demon's answer faded out, and Hinata noticed the chakra she had forced into the feline was being absorbed. The silver what? She thought quickly, hoping the connection was not totally gone. Bauble, hand, the Two Tails voice was gone from her mind. Hinata considered using her jutsu again to re-establish the link, but did not want to hurt the cat again. Instead she darted towards Sakura, deflecting Mayuko's kunai and then whispering her new plan in her teammate's ear. Madara Uchiha tried to sidestep the backhand, but he was not fast enough and was forced to interpose his own wrist instead. A powerful kick pushed Uchiha back when he caught it with both of his forearms, and he was unable to prevent the next attack, a sword-drawing slash with Kitsune, from clipping left his shoulder. Madara cursed Orochimaru. The injury on his left side had closed, but was still hurting him, slowing him down. And Uzumaki was fast, far faster than Madara had expected. Too fast for Madara to fully dodge in his current state, even with the Sharingan. Even worse, the Immortal could tell the fox-faced teen wasn't even at top speed yet. On top of that, Uchiha had already wasted far too much chakra on the snake, leaving him at a disadvantage, particularly against this foe. He could use 3 of his advanced Sharingan techniques, maybe 4 if he pushed his body to the danger point. And that was assuming he didn't use any normal jutsu. Naruto swung his staff blade horizontally, and missed, following up the attack with a spinning heel kick that struck Madara's chin. This seemed to awaken the Sharingan user. He glared at the younger man, and this time his anger was personal rather than academic. Madara caught Naruto's left arm when the teen punched again and turned it a wrist lock before kicking Naruto in the belly. Uzumaki's breath exploded out of his lungs, and his feet lifted off the ground for an instant. Though off balance, he swung Kitsune, using Madara's painful grip for leverage. The Akatsuki founder pulled slightly before letting go, and Naruto tumbled forward. He pushed off, rolling past the first Uchiha, landing on his feet behind his opponent. Naruto waited for Madara to turn, allowing his body to sort itself out. The pain in his forearm was quickly fading, and his breathing had returned to normal. Is that all? Madara mocked, your physical abilities are impressive, but they do not make up for the difference in our skills. You want skills? Naruto yelled back, then how about Fuyuten, Cyclone? Spike's jutsu, they finished in unison. 10 darts of air shot from each shinobi, and Madara's spikes intercepted each of Naruto's barbs. The younger man's attack was cancelled, but one of the immortal's weapons survived, and though it was deflected, it still grazed Uzumaki's cheek. Naruto grimaced, but even as the cut healed, he was signing again. Ni, me, Hitsuji, Ni, I, Doten, Stone Jacket Jutsu. Naruto was slightly surprised when Madara did not copy him. Raiten, Stone Cracker Jutsu, the first Uchiha said instead, shattering the pieces of the floor that rose to trap him. He saw Naruto's expression, and shrugged mildly. You thought I would let myself become trapped while you freed yourself from my copied version with your Rasengan. Madara revealed a full understanding of the teen's plan. You'll have to do better than that. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto shouted back, and 7 duplicates converged on the immortal traitor. I understand you've been looking for me, Sakura said, acknowledging Mayuko for the first time since she had recognized the hidden snow-missing nin. The younger woman's eyes widened slightly, and Haruno was forced to dodge another swipe of the demon's tails. Are you sure this was such a good idea? The medic said evenly, I mean, your sister was a Jonin, and I beat her when I was still a Genin. You're only a Chunin, and now so am I, so. Sakura darted in again, and this time Mayuko did not order the cat to defend her. Instead, she swung her mace at Sakura's head, caving in the older girl's skull. And then with a puff of smoke, the leaf ninja was replaced by a chunk of the wall, and appeared unharmed to Mayuko's right. Sakura grabbed for the Akatsuki candidate, but the younger teen popped as well, and reappeared behind Sakura, already aiming her weapon for the healer's head. Sakura twisted back and caught the mace. Tori, the renegade barked, and a spark flowed down the haft, forcing Sakura to let go. I've had some special training from the strongest shinobi in the world, Mayuko debated Sakura's earlier statement. And that's the other thing, Sakura nodded, at least your sister was loyal. You're just a renegade who joined up with a group of self-important traitors. Mayuko struck out again, but Sakura had brought out her axe, and blocked fairly easily. Then the older kunoichi pushed back, putting Mayuko on her heels. With Mayuko totally focused on Sakura, the two tails was stuck following the Snow Renegade's last order, which happened to be, get Tenten. The feline chose to interpret this as, pin Tenten to the ground and clean her. After deciding his girlfriend was safe for the moment, Neji moved to help Sakura. But Hinata shook her head at him, and he joined his cousin instead. She is locked onto Sakura, Hinata whispered, if you interfere, she might realize the cat isn't fighting us. What is your plan? He asked quietly. Sakura is going to grab amulet that controls the Bayou for me, she told him, I want to get a closer look at it. He nodded. Until Sakura is done, can you, Tenten, Sol, and Lune make it look like we are still fighting the cat? She requested, then added with a slight frown, without hurting the demon and making her angry. Neji flashed her his well-known wry grin, and nodded again before running back to rescue Tenten. Hinata continued to stare at the silver oblong, now recognizing the flow of chakra stretching from it to the feline, and also back into the night's gloom, towards the fortress. Mayuko grimaced again as Sakura blocked her bludgeon again. She dropped back and leveled a kick at the medic, which was also deflected. The former Snow Kunoichi grimaced, and slipped her weapon back into the loop on her belt. I never was a fan of weapons anyway, she excused herself, while trying to slip the amulet's chain around her neck. The Akatsuki follower glanced over at the demon, and saw the male Hyuga wrenching his teammate out of the demon's jaws at the last instant. Her distraction nearly cost her, as Tsunde's apprentice brought her axe down to prevent the younger woman from putting the talisman over her head. Can't fight me one-handed. Sakura kept her tone neutral, which made the implied insult worse to the revenge-driven teen. Mayuko lashed out with her left hand in response, but Sakura let go of her weapon with one hand, caught the traitor's wrist, and squeezed. The renegade lost her grip on the amulet as her bones cracked under the leaf shinobi's immense strength. Sakura pushed Mayuko's hand up as she released it, driving her own limb down to catch the metallic seal. She palmed the amulet and took a half-step turn away from the younger ninja. Hinata, catch, she warned unnecessarily, as she released the amulet in a low arc. Keeping her injured arm close to her body, Mayuko let out a groaning, whimpering snarl as she reached helplessly towards the talisman. Hinata caught the necklace by the chain, and began to study the structure of the seal in depth. Please, stop, she requested of the two tails. The demon was still chasing Tenten, but did not stop. The seal prodigy touched the tip of her finger to the back of the talisman, and sent in a pulse of chakra, repeating her appeal. This time the Bayu stopped, sitting on her haunches to regard the pale young woman warily. No, Mayuko howled, sending chakra recklessly into her cracked skeleton, healing it instantly, but imperfectly. She ignored the unevenness of her radius bone and the tendon she accidentally fused to her ulna, more concerned with regaining nearly complete use of her hand. She could have a medic try to fix it properly later. She lunged forward, kicking as she signed. She unleashed a trio of sharpened ice shards at Sakura, and then tried to slip past the leaf chunnan to get to Hinata. But Haruno interposed her axe blade, and when Mayuko tried to slide under it, the older teen drilled her heel into the traitor's side. It looks like a six-pronged seal, Hinata murmured, but it is really two triangle seals. A triplicate wave seal to draw a part of the cat's power out of the main seal, and a earth, water, and shadow seal to bind her conscious to the amulet. And overlapping that, a circle of thoughts seal to allow him to control her. The Hyuga Chunnan was disturbed by the combination, and what it had done to the demon. And she was impressed in spite of herself by the skill and creativity of the combination. She looked at her other allies, her eyes shining. If all of you can help me, we can help the demon, she said happily. Help the demon, Lune declared incredulously, why would we want to do that? Because she didn't kill you. Neji offered blandly. Because Lady Hinata wishes it. Sol said pointedly. Because doing so will remove her from the Akatsuki's control, Hinata answered firmly. We have a winner, the black squirrel snarked, so what do we need to do? I need you for the points of a chakra pentagon, she explained. Neji, can you be the water anchor? Of course. Sol, I know you have just started learning wind chakra, but you are the only one here that can be that anchor. I will do my best, mistress, the albino said uncertainly. You will do fine, Hinata reassured her familiar. All the four of you need to do is send a flow of elemental chakra to the adjacent points. I will create the seal based on that. Are you sure you can handle both the corner of the pentagon and forging the seal? Neji asked carefully. I can, I have to, Hinata said with more confidence than she felt. Then she turned to the last two leaf warriors, stating, with Sakura holding off Mayuko, there are only 5 of us, and I am the only one who can use lightning chakra. Tenten is our only fire expert, which leaves Earth to Lune. They all nodded, and she finished their instructions. Everyone get into position, lightning, fire, earth, water, and wind. Start sending out your chakra when you are in place. I will need to start forging the elemental cycle binding as soon as I break the other seals on the amulet. Tenten offered Hinata a smile of support, and the other 4 warriors all moved to surround the Bayu. Hinata reached into the amulet, and borrowed a sliver of the cat's chakra to replenish herself. Along with the painful flare of the demon's energy, she felt the words, good luck, from the monster feline. When she felt the streams of fire and air energy reach her, Hinata sent lightning back to them, and took a deep breath. Hitsuji, Tatsu, Ushi, seal break, she said, pressing her thumb into amulet. Her face screwed up in pain as she fought against Madara's jutsus. The cat's hackles began to rise, and she hissed at the strain on the core of her being. The chakra linking the Bayu to the talisman became visible to normal eyes, glowing brightly even under the spotlights. Then the tracings began to fall away, and Hinata started to sign again, as fast as her fingers could move. As the chakra flow between them began to respond to Hinata's actions, Sol's knees buckled from the effort. The young squirrel was skilled, but she did not have the chakra supply of a human ninja. Mayuko howled again, punching at Sakura's chest. The healer was forced to dodge. In a moment of pity she had allowed her enemy to complete a jutsu, which had surrounded the former Snow Kunoiki's hands with an aura of extreme cold. Mayuko's first attack had shown Sakura the error of her ways. The younger teen was more skilled in taijutsu than she was with her mace. And thanks to her technique even a glancing blow would inflict serious frostbite, while a full blow could be deadly. The leaf ninja was forced to avoid rather than block. She caught a handful of the attacks with her axe, but was worried too much cold would make the weapon brittle. Tsunade activated the Ranshinsho, and tried to disable Mayuko, but the lithe girl dodged her attacks in kind. The new pentagonal seal formed on the silver amulet an instant before Sol collapsed. Lune looked tired as well, but none of the humans were in as bad of shape. Hinata grasped the amulet firmly and drew on the demon's power again. It was not so painful this time but still uncomfortable. And again she felt connected to the Bayou. Thank you, the feline told her. I'm not done yet, the human thought determinedly. Hinata consumed a food pill to help recover her chakra in a slightly more natural and less dangerous way. Letting the amulet dangle from her wrist, under the edge of Ginmaki, she started to sign another jutsu. Me. I invoke the physical elements of fire, metal, wood, water, and air, she intoned, mortal elements seal. She slammed the fingers of her right hand into the amulet, forming a 5-pointed star inside the pentagon inscription of the first seal. Neji and Lune both stared at her curiously, but her intent became obvious once the seal took hold, burning into the sapphire on the front of the talisman. The Bayou began to rapidly shrink. The change caught even Sakura and Mayuko's attention, causing a briefly pause in the dance. The last clone exploded, returning its knowledge to the original. Naruto took a stance for a hard fighting style, grinning confidently at Madara. Uchiha stared back with a blasé expression, nonplussed by the young man's poise. Before either man could make the next move, a shattering sound and then a keening howl shook the back wall of the room. Both shinobi froze, Naruto looking confused, and after an instant of surprise, the Akatsuki leader looked livid, but with an undercurrent of fear. What the heck was that? Naruto asked, turning part of his attention to the wall. That was the sound of one of the tailed beasts I sent after your rescuers, being ripped free of the demon god statue, Madara said with a dry fury. Naruto didn't know how to react to those words. He was happy that his friends had come for him, but terrified that Madara had unleashed the demons on them. Except he was impressed and proud that they had managed to gain the upper hand on Madara by freeing one of the beasts. And then worried again, because beasts meant that Uchiha had sent out at least 2 of the demons, meaning his friends were still in danger. Still, no reason to waste an opportunity like this, Uzumaki thought, and then said out loud, I guess they got your number then, huh? It doesn't matter, I will retrieve the Bayou again and finish your presumptuous little comrades, Madara growled, after I eliminate the current annoyance. He turned back to Naruto, directing a truly murderous look at the teen for the first time. The Akatsuki founder's previous anger didn't hold a candle to his current rage. As he lifted his leg to approach Uzumaki, the breaking and screaming noises returned, this time at the same instant. Madara froze in place, directing his eyes to the wall that separated them from the demon-binding statue. When he finally turned back to Naruto, the Chunan's heart froze from the horrifying expression on the immortal's face. Finally, the reduction stopped. The demon was now only 4 feet in length from nose to the tips of her 2 tails. Her flames were extinguished, and her fur was a slightly more natural blue-gray, as opposed to the bright cobalt blue it had been. MROW. The sealed Bayou vocalized. Though he could only guess at what the cat was trying to say, Neji could not help but agree with her tone. What did you do? Mayuko wailed in dismay. Not only was her elevation to ring bearer out of the question, the snow teen was concerned for her own survival. We used the chakra union pentagon to move the 2 tails willing spirit into this vessel, Hinata briefly displayed her prize, before slipping it over her neck, and then I used the mortal elements seal to lock her chakra in the amulet. Unless I choose to release her, Ni will remain the size you see now, and has no more power than an average genin. But I don't control her, and it should be safe for her to be around people. The cat rubbed up against Hinata affectionately, and then glared triumphantly at her former master. So if I can take back the amulet, Mayuko narrowed her eyes, and tensed to charge Hinata. Tenten moved to protect her friend, but it was unnecessary. Sakura, annoyed that she had been forgotten, grabbed Mayuko by the neck, pouring more power into the Ranshinsho than it required. The traitor's body jerked once, and then began to flail randomly. What did you do? She repeated shrilly. I short-circuited your spine. You won't be able to control your limbs for the next hour or so. Sakura purposely omitted the fact that had allowed to Kabuto overcoming the technique. Hinata, still accompanied by the feline, hurried over to Sol. I'm sorry, Sol, she whispered, rubbing the rodent's head and neck, I asked too much from you. And I'm sorry I was short with you the other day. It's all right, mistress, the squirrel smiled. I'm very happy to be of service. Release. Hinata sent her ally back home, and turned to Sol's older brother. Don't you dare send me back. Lune forced himself up. If I go back without finding out what happened to Naruto, Sol will never let me hear the end of it. Naruto. Hinata hopped up, reminded of why they were here. Ni, please stay with Neji and Tenten, she said. The cat meowed, and the Hyuga-chunin answered, we don't want any of the Akatsuki members to find you. The cat nodded, and Hinata darted away into the night. Where does she think she's going? Sakura dropped the prisoner unceremoniously, and ran after her teammate. When did Hinata get so fast? Tenten wondered. Then she turned back to Neji, and asked, does that mean we're supposed to stay here? Neji did not answer. Instead he turned back to the barricade that had blocked their entrance, staring intently. 5 figures emerged from the gloom, and Tenten and Lune both tensed, until they realized the new shinobi all wore hidden mist shields. Master Hyuga, thank the gods we finally caught up to you, the first of the reinforcements said sincerely. What had happened here? Are you and Miss Tenten the only survivors? That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.